Hashem Hashem, Naaseh v'Natzliach. Tomorrow night is going to be Rosh Chodesh Kislev. A few circles ago, we did a whole circle about Cheshvan, the spiritual energy and the inner work of Cheshvan, and the ladies really liked it. So I thought it's a good idea to do a circle like this in the beginning of every month. Because tomorrow night is already Rosh Chodesh, I decided to make this circle about the energy of Kislev. So in the Hebrew calendar, each month has a slightly different climate, different temperature, both physically and also spiritually. The year is like a script for a play. And the play is the stories of our lives that are unfolding. And each month has a certain energy and certain inner work, what we call avodah, spiritual work that it demands. For example, there are months like Nisan, about miracles, about redemption. The energy of Elul is more about self-reflection, coming back to Hashem, coming back to ourselves. Now we want to focus on Kislev. So there are 12 dimensions or 12 categories for every month. And the entries for each of those categories for every month determine what is the nature of this month. These are a permutation of Hashem's name. Shem Havaya, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey. There are 12 different ways that you can write them. Each sequence corresponds to one month. The other one is a pasuk from the Torah, a verse from the Torah that corresponds to the month. A letter from the Aleph Bet. Name of the month itself, the experiential sense that's connected to the month. For example, we're going to see that the sense connected to Kislev is sleep. The zodiac sign, the tribe of Israel connected to the month, a body part, and an element, one of the four elements, water, air, earth, and fire. The Torah portions or parashas that we read in that month, the season of the year, and the holiday that occur in that month. Now, we are not going to go through 12 categories one by one. We are going to study the month more in a thematic way. Like we will see what's the theme of the month and how is that theme reflected in these 12 categories. So what is the seasonal and spiritual landscape of Kislev? Kislev is the third month of fall in the northern hemisphere. And something remarkable happens in this month. As we move towards the end of the Kislev, closest to the winter solstice. What is the winter solstice? The shortest day of the year and the longest night of the year. As we get closer to the winter solstice, which happens on 21st or 22nd of December, the moon is also going through its waning phase. Moon has a waxing phase. Waxing is when the moon is getting bigger and bigger, and the waning phase, when it's shrinking. So as we are getting closer and closer to that winter solstice, the longest night of the year, the moon is also shrinking. So Kislev is the point in year that is the darkest, not just during the night, but also during the day. Both the sun and the moon are at their weakest point in this time of the year. But here's the unique miracle, something subtle that happens, that is built into this darkness. So although towards the end of the Kislev, the winter is just beginning, the coldest months of the year are ahead of us. January, February in Canada, in Toronto, at least February is usually the coldest month of the year. But the light, even though the winter, the coldest days are ahead of us, the light actually has already started to return. After the winter solstice, what happens? Seconds by seconds, minutes, the days start to get longer and the nights shorter. Sun is slowly climbing higher in the sky. The days getting longer, the nights getting shorter. You won't feel it at first because it's so subtle, a few seconds every day. And this is already happening when you are right entering into the coldest time of the year, the winter. For 6 months from the summer solstice, days are getting shorter, and in the winter solstice, it reverses. The pattern reverses. This is the turning point in the nature. It's as if Hashem has put a little candle at the doorstep of the winter to tell us that the winter, the darkness, will never win. And this light is going to increase. This is the secret of what we call in Jewish mysticism, Ohr Chozer, or reflected light. We're going to see what that reflected light means. But this is what's happening in the nature in Kislev. This dual reality of Kislev, both in terms of what's happening in the nature and also the psychological renewal of hope inside us, determines the spiritual character of Kislev. Kislev is a time when the nature is telling us, is whispering that you might not see it yet, but the light has already begun. And we feel it inside ourselves too. You know, when we spoke about Cheshvan, some of you were not here, we said that Cheshvan, right after the Chagim, the high holidays of Tishrei, is a time that people go inwards. Suddenly it's quiet, no more Chagim, no more holidays. The days are getting darker and rainy, and we naturally feel like we want to withdraw. This is also reflected in the nature. That's when the animals start their winter hibernation around the same time. So emotionally, Kislev continues that emotional arc that already started from Cheshvan, but towards the end of Kislev, there is a shift, which reflects that shift in the between the earth and moon and sun. Suddenly that, maybe not so suddenly, gradually, that feeling that we had before in Cheshvan, want to be alone, it starts to get heavy. Now we want to go out. This is what we were talking about, that this time of the year, we want to make our circles in person. We seek community, connection, inner awakening. If that being alone of Cheshvan, which could be restorative and grounding at the beginning, but if it continues for too long, it's going to feel lonely. So toward the end of Kislev, a new longing arises for light, for warmth, for connection, for friends and family, for people, for community. And that yearning is not superficial. It's not accidental or coincidental. That is the reflection of our soul longing for that light, for that divine light of Hashem that we're going to receive on Chanukah towards the end of Kislev. So the world itself starts to brighten, and our neshama, our soul, feels it. And this desire for connection, for warmth, for light is a reflection of our inner desire for Hashem. And this is the month of dreams, the month of hope, the month of subtle miracles, where the light starts to come back before we can see it. That is the first sparkle of Bitachon, or trust, that we're going to see is the inner work of this month of Kislev. So I mentioned Ohr Chozer, or reflected light. I said this is the month of reflected light. What is this reflected light that we're going to talk about? For that, I want you to look at your source sheet, the first page, the 4-letter name of Hashem, more than a name. This is the ineffable name of Hashem, Yud and Hey and Vav and Hey, that we don't pronounce as we write it. Kabbalah teaches us that this is not just a name, it's a spiritual map of the world. It describes how divine energy flows from the highest hidden point of heaven all the way down to earth, to physicality, to our lived experience. And each letter in the holy name of Hashem carries a different quality in that process of transmission and different stage of that transmission. Traditionally, we describe these letters as feminine or masculine. The Yud and Vav, they're like the Yud like a small point and the Vav like a bigger line. They represent the masculine energy. Masculine energy is the giver. In Hebrew, we say mashpia. And Hey represents the feminine energy of receiving. In Hebrew, mekabel. And the letter Hey actually kind of looks like a vessel. If you look at it, Hey is the second one from top. And these letters, as we're going to see, have a different sequence in each month. There's a different sequence of these letters that correspond to the month. So this name, ineffable name of Hashem, is understood as the source of all being and time. This name doesn't like describe Hashem. It's the essence, it's the being. It includes past, present, future. It includes the whole existence and time. And because it is the source of time itself, every point in the Jewish calendar, every point in time, has its own connection with this name. That's the story of the different sequences. So in Kabbalah, we said each month corresponds to one sequence. The sequence for Kislev is Vav Yud Hey Hey. It's not in its original order. So I want you to look at page 1. It needs to go a little bit down to see the diagram. Yes, thank you so much. Okay, so this is the natural order. First, Hashem sends the spiritual light from above. That's the Yud, which we call the higher mashpia or giver. Let's call it the higher giver, the masculine. Then it goes to the Hey, which is the higher receiver, the feminine. After the Hey, it moves to the lower giver, Vav, which is again the masculine. And finally into the last Hey, the lower receiver. That's where it becomes real and revealed in our world. This is what we call Or Yashar, straight light. The light starts from heaven and flows down to us. What does it mean in, let's say, in a relationship with people? For example, we say that in relationship to Hashem, Hashem is the giver, masculine. We don't mean male or female, we mean the energy of masculine giver. And we are the receiver. Between man and woman, we say the man is the giver, the woman is the receiver. So the husband receives it from Hashem, receives abundance, Shefa, and gives it to woman. But the woman is also a giver in return, gives it back to the family, to the kids, and to the husband also. So it's the interplay between these energies. This is called Or Yashar, or straight light. But in Kislev, the sequence is different. Sequence for Kislev, you can see it visually on the second page. Can we go to the second page, please? Yes, thank you so much. So in the Kislev, the order begins with Vav, which is the lower giver. And after that, you see where it says number 1, from Vav, it moves up to Yud, to the higher giver, and then comes down to the first Hey, which is the higher receiver, and then from there to the final Hey, the lower receiver. So the light, instead of beginning from heaven, in Kislev, begins from earth, begins with us, with the small steps that we take, with the small flicker of light that we light. This is called Ohr Chozer, or reflected light. It's a light that rises from below, upward, and then reflects back to us. If you want a metaphor for it, imagine a candle. You have a small candle in a room. There's a little bit of light, barely noticeable. Now you place a mirror in front of it. The light from the candle reflects into the mirror, and the mirror strengthens the light, and then it's reflected back to the room, brightens up the room more. That is the secret of Ohr Chozer. When our light, our Vav, goes up, meets that Yud, the light of Hashem, it's magnified there. It's purified. It becomes stronger, and then it comes back. It's reflected back to us through clarity, blessings, miracles. So because it starts from us and it goes up, it becomes stronger. What does it mean spiritually? Spiritually, it means that Kislev is the month where miracles don't just happen, we awaken the miracles. Our effort, our emunah, our bitachon means trust, the small steps that we take start the light and bring about a greater light. In Nisan, for example, the miracles fall down from heaven, Pesach time. Everything is so dramatic. The whole Exodus, Yetziat Mitzrayim. In Kislev, miracles rises from below, upward. And this is why the inner work of Kislev is bitachon, is trusting Hashem from within the darkness. Trusting doesn't mean certainty. It doesn't mean that I see the plan, it means I trust the planner, as we said in our circle about Hashgachah Pratit. So the inner work is that awakening of our inner spark so that it can rise upward and reflect back to us. And this is what ultimately will bring the light of Chanukah. By the way, this process of Ohr Chozer, this diagram on page 2, explains why in this month the holiday is only at the end of the month. If you look at other holidays in the Jewish calendar, where do they take place? When? Always in the middle. Pesach, 15th of Nisan, Sukkot, 15th of Tishrei, Purim, 15th of Adar. But Kislev, because it starts from us, it goes upward and then it's reflected back to us. It's a process. Only at the end, the miracles start to reveal themselves. So this is the secret of Kislev, or Chozer, or returning light. It is a month that Hashem says, if you bring me your smallest act, I'm going to give it back to you many times more, many times stronger. We also said that there's a Torah verse associated with each month. And these letters, by the way, the sequence comes from that verse. I just put the verse for you on the source sheet for you to see. On page 2, number 3, the Torah verse associated with Kislev. Vayar Yoshev Haaretz HaKenani. So these 4 first words of this pasuk, the Canaanites, the inhabitants of the land, saw the morning at the threshing floor of the thorn bushes. So I highlighted the first letters of those 4 words. Everybody sees? Yeah. That is where the sequence comes from. Vav, Yud, Hey, Hey. What is this pasuk talking about? It is talking about the burial of Yaakov Avinu. According to the tradition, Yaakov Avinu passed away in the days that were going to become the days of Sukkot. And he was buried 70 days after that, which is around the time Chanukah, during the days of Chanukah. So the sequence comes from this pasuk. Now we want to speak more about Bitachon, that we said is the inner work of this month. We can stop the screen sharing now. Okay, thank you. But before we enter into Bitachon, I want to say something about the letter associated with this month that is going to explain why Bitachon is connected to this month. So the letter associated with Kislev is the letter Samech. On page 3, you can see how it looks like. Samech, like a circle. What does Samech mean? Samech in Hebrew comes from the root somech, to support. There is a pasuk in Tehillim. Somech Hashem lechol hanoflim. Hashem supports all those who fall and strengthens all who are bent down. Somech Hashem lechol hanoflim. This idea of Hashem supporting us is also reflected in the shape of Samech. How does Samech look like? First of all, it looks like a circle. If you're in that circle, there's no way to fall. You're supported from every direction. Which is, by the way, the opposite of last month, Cheshvan. We didn't get into the letter in Cheshvan, but the letter of Cheshvan is Nun, Nofel, falling. And the energy of Cheshvan was to rising up again after the initial fall that we feel after the high holidays. You kind of feel down after the Chagim finish. There's a fall in the energy, in our feeling of wanting to connect with Hashem. It kind of goes down. Everything goes down. So we want to rise up again after the fall. Samech is being surrounded to prevent the fall to begin with, or even if we are falling, to hold us so that we don't fall down all the way. If you look at Samech, Samech looks like a Chaf and a Vav connected. You can see this on page 3. You see it, Samech is like as if you put a Chaf and Vav together. What is a numerical value or gematria of Chaf? It's 20. In Hebrew, each letter corresponds to a number, has a numerical value. And the numerical value of Vav is 6. 20 plus 6, 26. Shem Hashem. That is the gematria of Shem Havaya, the ineffable name of Hashem. So this idea of Bitachon being the inner work of Kislev is reflected in the letter connected to Kislev, Samech, both from gematria and also visually. So the idea is that when we put our trust in Hashem, He supports us like a Samech, like the circle of the Samech, and prevents us from falling. So Cheshvan, the month of the Nun, gives us the strength to get up after the fall, and Kislev, the Samech, gives us the trust that Hashem is going to catch us, hold us before we fall. Cheshvan helps us recover. Kislev helps us trust. Kislev teaches us that even in the dark, even when we don't feel necessarily the presence of Hashem, in moments of doubt, the light has already begun. Hashem is holding us, trusting that there is a Samech beneath your Nun, catching you. And this is the beginning of that reflected light. To saying with yourself that I trust that even here, even if I feel falling, Hashem is here too. Hashem is catching me. There's another secret about the letter Samech. Samech itself has the numerical value 60. Okay. Now in halacha, there is a law that says if you have a pot of kosher food and there's a tiny drop of something non-kosher that gets accidentally inside your pot of kosher food, if the pot is at least 60 times, yes, more than that unkosher particle, that unkosher particle will be nullified. In Hebrew, we call it batel b'shishim. Shishim is 60. it's not that it just disappears. It actually becomes absorbed in the kosher pot, so the whole thing is kosher. So that particle is transformed to something kosher. Rabbi Dover Pinson says this power of 60, which is the numerical value of Samech, is also the power of Kislev. It's a lesson of Kislev. That just like in halacha, where 60 parts good can make 1 part bad also good, can turn, like, let's say 60 parts positive can turn 1 part negative into positive, is the same in our life, in spirituality. If we have enough divine support from Hashem, darkness in our life can be absorbed into light. Struggles can be absorbed into strength. Falling can be absorbed into support. And again, this is the inner work of Bitachon, the inner work of Kislev, that if we bring a little bit towards Hashem, Hashem is gonna reflect it back to us stronger. Now, this is how the idea of Bitachon is connected to the letter associated with Kislev, the letter Samech, we saw it. But Bitachon is also connected to Kislev through the name Kislev itself. The name of the month, remember, is one of those 12 categories that I said we are not going to review all of them. So we reviewed the letter, the sequence of name of Hashem. Now we want to see what the name Kislev itself means. So in Torah, names are powerful. The names are not just something by which we call a person or a thing or a place. The name describes the essence of the thing that it calls. It shows the deeper energy of that thing or person or place or time of the year or the month of the year. So where did the name Kislev come from? Now, we explained this before in Elul, that before the Babylonian exile, the Hebrew months didn't have a name. They were called in their order. So what was the first month? The first month is Nisan, yes. So we start counting the year from Tishrei, but the months start from Nisan. For example, Av was called the 5th month, Cheshvan the 8th month, and Kislev the 9th month. Only after the Babylonian exile, these names that we now have, like Tishrei, Cheshvan, Kislev, the name came after Babylonian exile. We see this name, Kislev, first time in the books Nehemiah and Zechariah. So what does Kislev come from? From the Akkadian word Kislimu. Akkadian is the area of ancient Babylonia. So it comes from the word Kislimu, which means thickened or congealed. Congealed means something that becomes semi-solid, especially after cooling down. Imagine a visual example, like kazan kebab after Shabbat. After Shabbat dinner, you put it in the fridge. In the morning, it's congealed. It's become like kind of jelly, semi-solid. That's what it means. So what is this referring to? Congealed or thickened. This is referring to how the heavy rain from Cheshvan turned the earth into thick clay. You know, when you mix water, and so it turns it into clay. So the name itself comes from Akkadian language. But there is a rule. Once a word is imported into Hebrew language and is accepted by the sages, it becomes part of the fabric of Hebrew too. So we can explore the name through the lens of Hebrew letters and sounds and roots. This is what our sages and Kabbalists do. So this name, originally it came from Akkadian into Hebrew, but now they're going to see what root is it connected to in Hebrew, because now it's part of the fabric of Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language. And now we're gonna get into part 4 of your source sheet. No, we already covered part 4. Last page. We're still in part 4, page 4. B, the name of the month and Bitachon. So Kislev is related to Kisli, which means my trust. There is a pasuk from Tehillim. Im samti zahav kisli. Sorry, this is from Iyov, the book of Iyov, not Tehillim. Im samti zahav kisli. If I put my hope in gold. So the root of Kislev is directly connected to placing your trust in something. Kislev is also related to Kislam, their trust. In the second box on page 4, you see Tehillim 78, 7. And they should put their hope in God. V'yasimu velokim kislam, their trust. Ibn Ezra, one of the commentators, says that Kislam kemo miftecham, like their confidence. In some places here, for example, I copied this from Chabad's website. It's translated as hope, their hope. They should put their hope in God. In some places, confidence. So it means trust, confidence. The very name Kislev itself hints to trust, confidence, hope, to what we call Bitachon. And the commentaries add a subtle distinction. They say Kesel, there's a difference between Kesel and Bitachon. In English, we call both of them trust. But they say Kesel is trusting that something won't be bad. Bitachon is trusting that it is going to be good, actually. So Bitachon is even a more positive, higher level of trust. And Kislev invites us to this type of Bitachon. Kislev is also related to the root kasa, to cover or protect. The third pasuk that you have on page 4, Tehillim 32:10, this is famous. I read the whole pasuk. Rabim mach'ovim larasha v'habotach b'Adonai chesed yesovevenu v'habotach b'Hashem chesed yesovevenu. Many are the pains of the wicked, but as for him who trusts in Hashem, kindness encompasses him. Yesovevenu means encircles him, actually. Like in Hebrew, we call dreidel sevivon, because it turns around and around. So this pasuk connects back to the letter of the month, to Samech, which is shaped like a circle, and it represents safety, support, protection, being held. So when we put our trust in Hashem, we become surrounded by his Samech of protection. He encircles us. And the bitachon, that trust itself, will become a vessel, a keli that will bring down more goodness from Hashem. This is the secret of bitachon. Bitachon means trust in Hebrew, even like in mundane, the most mundane aspect. You want to say, are you sure? How do you say it in Hebrew? Ata batuach, or to feminine, at batucha. To be sure, we need a certain level of trust to function normally in daily life. For example, we mentioned in the group that we are going to meet in person and on Zoom today. You need to trust that I'm going to show up here. Based on past performance, you're anyways taking a chance. You never know, for sure. You're trusting that things are going to work out the way you think, the way you hope. When you buy a fish, for example, chunk tuna in water or in olive oil, but you don't see what is inside the can. You don't see it, you can't smell it, you can't touch it. You need to trust that it is true. If it says it's tuna, it is actually going to be tuna. So we need a basic level of trust or bitachon to function normally in life. But Kislev invites us to a deeper kind of trust, not just in people or plants or in cans of tuna, but in the source of all life. Kislev, this month that contains the longest and darkest nights of the year, is also when the first return of light begins. Right at the peak of darkness, the return of light begins right when we are entering into coldest months of winter. So Bitachon is to trust that good things are coming your way even before you actually see them and notice them in your life. This is the work of Bitachon. So what is the difference between Bitachon and Emunah? One moment. We spoke a lot about Emunah in Hashgachah Pratit in last circle. Emunah is a natural belief in Hashem at its basic level that you all have. We said that we say, Anachnu ma'aminim, b'nei ma'aminim, we are believers, the children of believers. Every Jew has this Emunah in their soul. Even if they're an atheist, they have the seed of Emunah. It's just covered up by so many layers and layers of klipa or shell. It needs a lot of unpeeling and unpeeling and unpeeling, but it is there. Bitachon is a little bit different. In daily conversation, we use them interchangeably, but they're actually slightly different concepts. Emunah, Bitachon is when we trust Hashem actively in the moment. Trusting that He is with us, He is guiding us, He is bringing us toward good even before we see it. Bitachon is choosing to trust that hidden light before you see it. And there are different levels of Bitachon. The basic level of Bitachon is what we spoke about last circle. Emunah in Hashgachah Pratit is basically that basic level of Bitachon. You trust that nothing is random, nothing is a coincidence. Hashem is involved in everything, guiding everything. He's present in every detail of our lives. So Emunah is believing in Hashem. Bitachon is living with that Emunah actively every moment. Next level of Bitachon, a little bit higher, this is when life feels uncertain, unclear. It's hard to see what good Hashem is bringing about in this situation, in times of suffering, God forbid, in what we call hester panim, hidden face, in the moments that it feels like Hashem has left us. We don't feel the presence of Hashem. This higher level of bitachon is to trust that even in those moments, Hashem is behind it. Hashem is guiding me. These two levels, both of them are necessary, they're good, but they're kind of passive. There is a even higher level of bitachon, the third level, which is essentially a deeper expression of the second level. This is what we call active bitachon. This is not just to believe that Hashem is involved in everything, even in times of darkness and uncertainty, but to believe that Hashem is bringing about the situation for good. This is a higher level. Not just that Hashem is behind this, but that because Hashem is good and good can only give good, so this situation, even if it doesn't feel good to me right now, is for good. Eventually, it's for ultimate good. And this reflects a deep teaching in Judaism. The Alter Rebbe, it was the founder and first Rebbe of Chabad, who we call Baal HaTanya. He wrote the book Tanya. Rabbi Shneur Zalman of Liadi. He says the nature of the good one is to do good. Hashem is the source of all good, so whatever he does is good, is for good. This is when your trust itself becomes a vessel to bring about more goodness. This is when David HaMelech says, Habotach b'Hashem chesed yesovevenu. The one who trusts in Hashem, goodness surrounds him. This Bitachon, ladies, is the Bitachon of the mother of Ori Megidish. You know Ori Megidish, familiar name? Ori Megidish was one of the young girls, IDF girls. I think she was one of the girls that were taken as hostage from Nahal Oz base. She was taken as a hostage. After she was taken to Gaza, their family started to accept a lot of mitzvot upon themselves, doing a lot of good, doing a lot of mitzvot to create the zechut, the merit to bring her back home. There was a viral video of Ori's mom. She was doing hafrashat challah as she took that dough challah offering. She's holding it in her hand, and she pours out her heart to Hashem in a very heartfelt prayer. Now, here's this mom. At that point, she didn't even know if her daughter is alive or dead. And as she's holding the challah in her hand, there's a moment that with tears, every time I think about this, it brings tears to my eyes. It's so emotional. She says in Hebrew, Ribono shel olam, ani ohevet otcha. Master of universe, I love you. Yeah, I got so emotional. Every time I remember this scene, I imagine her bitachon, her emotions in that moment. She says, I love you, Hashem. Her daughter is in Gaza. She doesn't even know if she's alive. And with those terrible videos that came out, how they were treating those female soldiers, she still says, Hashem, I love you. This is this third level of bitachon. That not only she believes that everything is from Hashem, she also believes that it's for good. That's why she's able to say, I love you, Hashem. Even in that tragedy that, lo aleinu, I hope nobody would ever be in the situation to practice that level of bitachon. So this is the highest level of bitachon. Thank you. This is when the bitachon itself becomes the vessel that generates more good. And less than a week, here's the thing, less than a week after she said this, they rescued her daughter from Gaza. So this is literally that pasuk from David HaMelech, that this level of bitachon itself brought that goodness into being. And the more we trust Hashem in this manner, the more Hashem's goodness and light will be revealed in our life. This is again Ohr Chozer, reflected light. Bitachon in this level is reflected light. You start the light down here, it goes upward, it's reflected back to you many times more. This bitachon is not just believing that things are going to get better. It's believing that our action can help to bring about the goodness, that my choices matter in this world. Every mitzvah, every good act that I do generates more positive energy, more zechut, more merit. This is where the Gemara says in Kiddushin, one good deed can tip the entire world toward goodness. If you imagine a scale, like the same line, just a little bit of good added to the side of good can tip the whole scale. So bitachon starts at first as a conviction in our heart that everything is from Hashem, but then it shines out through our actions, good deed, a positive decision, a mitzvah, a step toward connecting with Hashem, toward healing, a shift in our thinking, a small act of kindness that we do for somebody, a nice word that we say to somebody. Active bitachon means we don't just wait for the light of the Chanukah that we're going to see at the end, that miracle, but we're going to begin the light ourselves. We initiate that upward spark, our Vav, the lower giver, and then it's going to go meet the light of Hashem and be magnified there. This is the Bitachon of Kislev, the deepest level of Bitachon, the reflected light of Bitachon. Okay, we're already almost over time. I think this topic is gonna be a true class, like a mini series. We're gonna continue the. I love the idea of months. It's amazing how everything is connected. And when we look at Jewish calendar in this light, we are not just, going through the motions. We are actually living in alignment with the month, with the energy of the month. So to wrap up, we spoke about Kislev, about the month of hidden light. We said that this is when the light, the divine energy starts from us. It goes upward, from below, upward. We spoke about the letter of the month, Samech, and how it implies the idea that Hashem is supporting us. We saw that this is the beginning of that first spark of Bitachon, or trust, the reflected light. Next week, Bezrat Hashem, we are gonna explore the other side of Kislev. We are gonna see that Kislev is also the month that's connected to sense of sleep. The world of dreams. In the month of Kislev, the Torah portions that we have carry the most number of narratives of sleep or dream. The dreams of Yosef happened in this month. We're gonna see what is the connection between sleep, and Bitachon, and the month of Kislev, and eventually to the miracle of Chanukah. How the soul begins to receive guidance in times of night, in times of darkness, in sleep. And Bezrat Hashem, we want to prepare ourselves through this little mini-series to be ready to absorb the light of Chanukah when it comes to its fullest. So in this circle, I always send the Hitbodedut and journaling prompts a few days after the circle. And last time I feel so bad that I forgot to send it, the one on Hashgachah Pratit, but this time I sent it in the group before the class. I'm gonna send it again in the chat. I'm gonna tell you what we're gonna do with it. By the way, if anybody has a question, comment, feel free to share. I always love it when I hear your thoughts and comments about the circles and these teachings. Okay, I just sent another file in the group chat. This is the second. Love is also like heart. Yes, and live heart, that's the like loins in English, stomach. That is the organ connected to Kislev. Stomach? Yes. Like the intestine? Yeah. So if we want to explore all of these 12 categories of, first of all, some of them are beyond my knowledge. But if you're going to explore all of these 12 categories, it's gonna take
This is like another brain, the gut. It says follow your gut in science, that there's so many nerve endings here that they're saying it's like another brain.
I think, how do you pronounce it? Loin in English, that's stomach, right? Intestines?
The lower intestine?
Loin.
Loin. No, loin is like, loins are like what covered Adam's cover.
No. I don't think so. A stomach or loins. Keva, kesel, this is the body part. Yeah. Oh, so there is a second paper.
Oh, journaling prompt?
Yeah. So I want to see what ladies think about this. We have Hitbodedut prompts. What is Hitbodedut? Your informal conversation with Hashem in your own words, in your own language. These prompts, this is not like a script that you speak with it to Hashem. It's something just to start the conversation so that after reading it, hopefully your own words will flow. naturally. And it's connected to the teachings that we shared, the Hit with the Dude prompts. But there you have some journaling follow-ups. For example, where do I need to feel supported right now? What is one area of my life that feels unclear, hidden, or dark? And where does Bitachon need to step in? What tiny spark of light has begun to return recently? What does active Bitachon mean for me this week? Where can I take one small step, even without full clarity, and have faith that my small step will become the vessel to bring more goodness into being? I'm reading it from the paper that you have, the journaling prompts. Yeah. So at the end, we have some practical tips to grow in Bitachon this week. So I just wanted to quickly go through them. I invite everybody this week to have a daily Samech moment. That letter, round letter of Samech, to place a hand on your heart and take a deep breath and say, Hashem is holding me. And I actually want you to imagine that circle. Imagine being in that circle of Samech. There's nowhere to fall from it. You're encircled by Hashem's support. Second suggestion, one step of active bitachon. Saying to yourself, bitachon means I don't wait for clarity, I move toward it. Yeah. Or choose one small doable step in an area where you normally freeze or wait for clarity. It can be making a phone call you have avoided, to maybe make amends with a friend that you haven't spoken with for a long time, organizing something you have been procrastinating, taking a small step toward healing. And remember that a tiny spark is enough to awaken reflected light. Third idea, replacing one worry. Each time a fear arises this week, replace it with this sentence. This too is from Hashem and good will come from it. Gamzu letova, hakol me'et Hashem. When we repeat these sentences daily, we train our spiritual muscles. We said it a few times in our circles that emunah is like a muscle. In the same way that you need gym, physical workout, if you want to build muscles, emunah is the same way. You need to practice it daily in those little moments, the small moments. 4, notice reflected light. Each day, look for one moment where a tiny spark you offered, like a thought, a prayer, a step, returned to you as a little bit of light. Notice one moment where something small goes right, or where a worry softens, and say thank you, Hashem, for it. This trains the eyes to see Ohr Chozer, to see reflected light. And last one mitzvah done slowly. Either to accept a mitzvah upon yourself and see it as that initial light that you start, that's gonna, Bezrat Hashem, be reflected to you stronger, or take a mitzvah that you're already doing and slow down. Do it with more kavanah, with more intention. Bedtime before, Shema before bedtime. What did it say? Bedtime Shema, Shema before sleep. That's a good one, I think, especially considering the theme of this week, sleep and dreams, that we're going to explore next week. So either accept it upon yourself to do it, or if you're already doing it, do it with more kavanah, with more intention. And see it as a vessel for light. And I have some tea light candles. This was a late idea. Then I thought I should have just bought something more fancy, nicer. But I'm just gonna hand them around because tomorrow is Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Tomorrow night is already Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So it's a good idea to light a candle and maybe do some of those journalings. What people to say?
Put it in front of a mirror.
Reflect upon this teaching. Wow, it's exactly the number of the this one is.
That's a little kiss from Hashem.
Yeah, everybody probably has a tea light candle at home, but I wanted you to remember the teachings that we shared in this circle as you light your candle. Okay, ladies on Zoom, Thank you for joining us. As usual, feel free to comment, ask your questions either in a group or directly.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Good
It was
night.
very interesting.
Thank you, Rebitsa.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
So happy and grateful to be able to share these teachings with you. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
So happy to hear that, Erica. Thank you so much, Maim. Thank you, Alice. Thank you, Joel. Milana, everybody. So good to see you. And hopefully I will meet all of you in person one day.
Bizrat Hashem.
Have a
Bizrat
wonderful
Hashem.
night. And don't forget, tomorrow night is already Rosh Chodesh Kislev. I encourage you to light a candle and do the journaling practices as well. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Stop,
Happy
everybody.
Rosh Chodesh Kislev. Shabbat Shalom.
Chanukah every Shabbat.
Okay.